Hi, everybody, and greetings to each and every one of you from KWWL and Holiday Vacations. As I would say, we can call this the wrap-up, the finale of our European vacation with this, as promised, DVD. Just a little reminder, a little video of our 11-day journey to Europe. You know, I thought Gail did a fantastic job as our tour director, and I hope all of you feel the same about Gail. She did a great job for us all. And let me say how much I very much enjoyed each and every one of you, meeting all of you. Such a wide variety of backgrounds and careers and families, and I truly mean it when I say I really enjoyed our group. You were certainly fantastic. So thanks to everyone, and I'm going to start with the 4 stories I sent back for air on KWWL.
KWWL follow-up now. We are continuing to follow our very own Ron Steele's adventures to Normandy, London, and Paris. He has the latest on his most recent adventure.
Hey, one of our great stops this week was here. This is the Tower Bridge, of course, of London behind me, and we went in to see some of the royal palaces here.
And they're today in charge of tourists.
Suzanne is our tour guide, and one of our stops today, the historic royal palaces at the Tower of London, which house the royal family's crown jewels, which unfortunately we're not even allowed to photograph, but that didn't bother Bob at all.
The information that they gave us in the tower with all the jewels and everything was very impressive. I never really heard those stories before, so it made it a very interesting tour.
An afternoon cruise took us up the famous River of Thames through the heart of London, and then to get a bird's eye perspective of the city, our loyal KWWL viewers took a 30-minute ride on the famous London Eye, the world's tallest observation wheel. And even on a rainy day like this, the London Eye provides you with some spectacular views of London and overlooks the entire city of 10 million residents. This, by the way, is the Waterloo Bridge, built entirely by women back in the late 1930s. I asked the group to rate our day during the London Eye ride.
I think the consensus is a 9 or an absolute 10. If it weren't raining, we'd be a lot better. Yes. But it is a beautiful day in London for us, and we have just had a great tour so far.
The Americans are home.
And later this week, we'll be heading to other famous and historic London locations, including Buckingham Palace. In London with KWWL viewers, I'm Ron Steele, News 7, KWWL.
Continuing coverage now, KWWL's Ron Steele has been traveling overseas with some of our KWWL viewers. We check in on his latest adventures in London.
So one of our stops, of course, on the trip, Buckingham Palace. Unfortunately, they won't let us in, and the Queen will not come out to see us.
And it's very rude of her not to come out and wait.
That is Suzanne, our British guide in London. We watched some Buckingham Palace guards on the move and kind of enjoyed hanging around the front gate for a while before we got back on the bus. We got a good glimpse of Westminster Abbey as we headed to the Churchill War Room and on to the Imperial War Museum. The Imperial War Museum is a very interesting kind of museum in that it recalls numerous world events. For example, it houses this mangled piece of steel, what's left from a window frame from the North Tower of the Twin Towers of 9/11. This is what's left of an Iraqi civilian vehicle which was hit in a terrorist attack on a Baghdad street one morning. The Imperial War Museum covers all kinds of events like the World Wars, the Iraq War, Desert Storm, the Holocaust. School kids from all around come here to study world history.
So much history here.
For Craig and Marie Schildroth of Rhinebeck, they were certainly moved by what they saw here.
And it's hard to imagine all the suffering that they went through. Trench warfare, the rats, just unbelievable. It's quite an impressive museum.
We have seen so much history, and it's more than just World War I and II. You just can't imagine all the suffering people did, and it's really important for people to see this history and what all took place.
Unfortunately, our time in London was far too short. Time now to head south to England's southern shore, known as Portsmouth. We boarded this cruise ship known as the Normandy, a big ferry to and from England to northern France. A 5-hour trip for our viewers from KWWL, a little more than 100 miles, and it's taking us to the D-Day beaches of Normandy. Our next report will come from there. With KWWL viewers on board the Normandy crossing the English Channel, I'm Ron Steele, News 7 KWWL.
Well, we have been giving you small updates about our own Ron Steele's adventures in Europe with KWWL viewers on their holiday vacations trip. Well, tonight we hear from Ron himself as they make their way through Europe.
One of the most anticipated stops on our tour, the Normandy American Cemetery, where there are more than 9,000 headstones, all made of marble from the United States. Those 9,000 crosses serve as a sobering reminder of that historic day. The ultimate sacrifices made by thousands of young Americans and Allied forces who took part. They jumped from the sky. They stormed the beaches on June 6, 1944.
And the newsreel pictures really help make it real, sadly.
U.S. Army infantry veteran Wally Murphy and his wife Glenda of New Hampton are amazed by the obstacles the U.S. and Allied forces had to overcome.
The terrain, it was incredible to think that they actually did an amphibious landing and were successful as a tribute to all these people.
From our group, here's Sally Happel and Carol Mitchell of Waterloo make the sobering walk to the cemetery. And Linda and Mike Bovey discovered that there are many crosses in this cemetery bearing the names of young Iowans. The crosses, however, don't give any hometowns.
William C. Ross.
Inside the cemetery museum, an incredible recollection of D-Day. The names of those killed in action are read aloud.
Jesse W. Brace.
I remember one thing he said.
An emotional Tom Kelly of Cedar Rapids reflects on what he felt going through the American cemetery.
The life that they gave is probably the reason that we're here today. Also, I thought back of my dad, who, if he was alive, would have been 94, and he was a World War II vet.
Kim Eilers of Swisher says, as Americans and Iowans, we owe so much to D-Day's bravest, who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Just think what those kids had in their head when they were got off those ships. Amazing. And we're free because of it.
We all took time to reflect on what we had just seen here at this famous Normandy American Cemetery and its historic significance. As we all understand, freedom is not free.
Well, we heard from my co-anchor Ron Steele last night as he and KWWL viewers were at Normandy Beach on their holiday vacations trip. Well, now more on their next stops at Utah Beach and eventually Paris. Here's Ron.
At low tide, our KWWL group made a stop at Utah Beach, where more than 27,000 Americans came to shore on D-Day. Here is Eastern Iowa veteran Fred Powers of Tipton with his daughter Deb as they overlook the famous sands of Utah Beach. Several others from our group, though, they wanted to personally walk the same steps as those brave American heroes did 75 years ago.
From 1956 to 58.
On Utah Beach, I asked area veteran Don Billhorn of Reedland to reflect on this piece of American history.
We just honor those very much, that we have the freedom that we have today. So it's just been a wonderful trip for us to see all this after 75 years of it.
At nearby St. Miraculous, the first village liberated by Allied forces on D-Day, there's this very famous scene. It depicts American paratrooper John Steele of the 82nd Airborne. His parachute got caught up in one of the church spires, and he dangled there until being captured by the Germans and taken prisoner, only to escape later and return to battle for the United States. He was awarded the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star. We also had a chance to see this amazing view from historic Point du Hoc, where American paratroopers from the 101st and 82nd Airborne scaled 100-foot cliffs to overtake German positions and secure that area. Later, we moved on to the nearby Paratrooper Museum, where planes from D-Day, like the C-47s, are on display. And there's this replica of General Dwight D. Eisenhower addressing his troops. Visitors also hear these sounds, the sounds of ground combat which ensued after the successful paratrooper jumps. You can hear the planes still overhead. So with our D-Day adventures behind us, we're now on a cruise on the River Seine in Paris, and we've just gone by the famous Notre Dame Cathedral, which of course is being reconstructed following the fire. And Paris, of course, is the final stop on this year's KWWL Viewer Tour. That means we'll be home soon. In Paris, I'm Ron Steele, News 7 KWWL.
The way out, there's no exits this way. You're coming You wouldn't have had an exit this way if you're coming to Beaverheaded anyway. It was Britain's first one-way street. I'll show you. Now down there you can see the gentleman with the big hat on, a ceremonial type dress. He's actually a yeoman warder. He's not a Beefeater, his nickname. Now there are 40 yeoman warders that live within the precincts of the tower, and they're today in charge of tourists. They were in charge.
You know, because you wait one day too long. Okay. Yeah. See what he looks like, Raymond. He's got that.
Look at we're running over here. Very practical, that's right. Roll it up in a ball if you need to sit on it. Not there yet. Okay. Go to right here. So go right here. 6 weeks before her cousin had been born, had been kept in prison. And he'd been there.
She thought she'd never get out alive, but she was quick-witted and the Tower of London, as you can imagine. Now in this tower, the Wakefield Tower, that's where Henry VI was praying, he was very religious, stabbed. Henry VI had been murdered in 1471. Henry had do you know what I mean? And legally divorced. Wife number 5 was young, pretty, full of life. Now, Henry was getting a bit old and had a little affair. When Henry found out about that, she was at Hampton Court. Toilets, if you want to go to the toilets before you go in to see the crown jewels, they're just round the corner. Otherwise, you can wait till you come up. Queen enters Westminster Abbey. She's very simply dressed. The boys of Westminster Choir go.
Come on board and explore. Coming into, you'll see the round of white building with the crest. It has a replica of the And is everybody enjoying the live commentary so far? Make extra slow. The Americans on board.
Oh. No, don't. Get them
out. With a silver champagne ice. Our current sewer system goes all the way down through London to a place called Essex, and that's what we like to do with all the festival. If they do not wave back, it means they're from London. We're 32. People even get married on there now. There's been over about proposing to your lady whilst you're in London. Why not take her up there? And ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Hall was only a very short, very loud, and he much resembled a bell. So they named it after him. They used to call.
Yeah. Yeah. And finance. Very peaceful, called Extinct, about, and they did stop a lot of disabilities, and that
plain scone and a fruit scone each. So the fruit scone is...
So the smoked salmon, what do you need for the cucumber? The cucumber was second. And 10 in the house.
30 miles today we went.
30 miles to the ocean. Like, about that.
Big Rich. I'll never forget that now. 2/3 way up.
And then all of a sudden we end up with 31.
Yeah, that's good.
She says, Judy, you're even dressed like a vacation person.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's one of the problems.
She's overtaken.
Now we're about tapped out.
You know what?
Yes, I'm not any.
Oh boy, I got you right in the square.
The enforcement arrived from Omar, other rangers, at the end of the 8th of June. And, but they were left 90.
You're feeling good now, though, right?
Oh, I'm feeling all right.
But I mean, it's that all that's supposed to be growing in it.
I know which animals, funny animals, that were not in Normandy. I love it still more, thinking of the paratroopers, the tragedy here, which are the best, plus the captors, the main, and that one, considered it's a beautiful one.
Okay, over there they found the C-47. That's what you have to see to C-40. And there's a shop.
Oh, Ron.
For mares, they get their foals in their foals here. So look in the fields, but I can't see it now. Yeah, it was here, the tide was here first. So they had less than 200 casualties. It's a very big battery, another big battery, and it could reach, it had a range of 20 miles. He came here once with his brother. They were twin brothers, but they didn't know their father because they were babies when their father died in 48. Gave money to renovate the museum. That's what I wanted to tell you about the duel. So, we are supposed.
$36. Margaret, 36.
What,
It
honey?
would hold 36.
36.
Yeah.
We were close. We were at 4. You go up there and look around, huh? I just walk uphill. You going this way? Yeah. We don't know where we're. They saw it coming from a ways. Stand tall.
How was the beach?
Utah Beach. Correct? They just thought there's no way. Oh, no. It's beautiful out here.
You had bunkers, one each side, to protect the valley. So Omaha Beach was difficult because it is dog green. Dog green, then dog red, dog white.
Yes, we got one. Oh, yeah. We can let her out.
Those cardboards where they explain what happened on different houses. For example, over there was an American who fell on the roof, but he came down along the gutter and
Yeah, and you're not the first one. I have a friend here that says the same thing. Yes.
Hey!
I found it. Oh, goodness. I'm hot.
Oh, great. Don't do that.
Oh my God.
Anyway, come a little bit closer so that you...
Luke calls it, I have to tell you what Luke calls it. He calls it a Shakespeare stop. To pee or not to pee? That is the question. I'm stealing your joke.
Mais legal.
Oh!
What, 3 minutes and 30 seconds?
I don't have time.
It's like a screen and you just watch it.
access to the main facade.
Un equilibrio perfecto con magníficos vitrales. Vestigios de culturas antiguas.
We've been floated by the Cathedral of Notre Dame being fire.
Che significa paradiso. Ed è una cattedrale simbolo del periodo gotico, come quelli di Chartres, Amiens e Reims.
노트르담 대성당은 1163년 모리스 슐리 주교를 위해서 천재적인 건축가 빌라르드 온누포르가 건축을 시작했습니다.
Per le vittime della seconda guerra mondiale.
파리 대주교 광장, 이 앞쪽에는 2000...
Perfecto con magníficos vitrales. Vestigios de culturas antiguas.
Notre Dame de Paris.
We've been floated by the Cathedral of Notre Dame being fire.
Che significa paradiso. Ed è una cattedrale simbolo del periodo gotico, come quelli di Chartres, Amiens e Reims.
노트르담 대성당은 1163년 모리스 슐리 주교를 위해서 천재적인 건축가 빌라르드 온누포르가 건축을 시작했습니다.
Per le vittime della seconda guerra mondiale.
파리 대주교 광장, 이 앞쪽에는 2000...
So that's really just about it. Our holiday vacations KWWL European trip of 2019. I certainly hope you had a wonderful time as we did, and thank you so much for joining us on that great journey. So now back to reality. As I say, thanks from all of us right here at KWWL, and remember, we've got you covered.